Hello and welcome to episode number 191, where I'm speaking with Ayurvedic educator Mary Thompson about perfect health and habituation. And we discuss an Aristotle quote that states excellence isn't an act, but a habit, and how Ayurveda too agrees with the fact that daily foundation of self-care practices, habits, and rituals are important to keep the doshas in balance, to prevent disease, and to lead a fulfilling life. So please stay tuned. Hello and welcome to the Elements of Ayurveda podcast. I'm your host Colette, and I hope to educate and empower you to take charge of your health and well-being, preventing disease in the body and mind so that you can thrive in life. I will be sharing the holistic teachings of Ayurveda, the ancient healing tradition from India. I will also discuss topics like yoga, which is the sister science of Ayurveda, health and wellness, nutrition, fitness, and mindfulness practices, as well as interviewing lots of inspiring people along the way. My humble wish is to help you to connect to your true nature, to Mother Nature, and to help you to connect to each other. If you're new to Ayurveda, I recommend that you start by listening to the first couple of episodes where I do an introduction to Ayurveda and the mind-body types. Now, if you like the content, please subscribe to the show so the new episodes will automatically download for you to enjoy. I've also set up a new private community away from social media on my new website, Elements Healing and Wellbeing. Now, this community provides a safe space for like-minded people to come together, to connect, to share, and to support each other. And I have many other perks in this community as well, so check it out. I'll put the link in the show notes or visit my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com, and just click on the community tab in the menu. I hope you can join us. I'm looking forward to a lot more in-depth connection and conversation over there. And now, here's the show. This episode is sponsored by Kerala Ayurveda Academy. Do you want to lead a more holistic life in tune with nature and inspire those around you? Deepening your study of Ayurveda can help you to achieve this and so much more. Study of the Vedas is like a roadmap to uncovering your true self. Ayurveda not only supports your health, but it also addresses all aspects of your life. You have a unique life purpose or dharma, and learning Ayurveda can help you to align with it. Kerala Ayurveda Academy is a full-spectrum Ayurvedic company with deep roots in India, offering education, wellness, and herbal products. You can study online or in person and train in awe-inspiring Kerala, India, the birthplace of these ancient traditions. If you'd like to deepen your study in authentic teachings from Ayurveda, visit keralaayurveda.us to learn more. That's keralaayurveda.us, and you'll also find the link in the show notes. Hello and welcome back to the Elements of Ayurveda podcast. Today I'm very happy to welcome back Mary Thompson, who is an experienced Ayurvedic educator employing humor and insight in her unique presentation style. She has taught Ayurveda for more than 20 years, and she is currently stepping away from the formal teaching while continuing to find joy in her independent study of Ayurveda. She envisions continuing the discussions of Ayurvedic concepts with anyone interested as she reinvents herself and her offerings in retirement, endeavoring always to bring the wisdom of Ayurveda to those that most need its healing gifts. Mary, welcome back to the podcast. It is a pleasure to have you back.
Thank you, Colette. It's great to be back with you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And I was reading your blogs and I came across one titled Perfect Health, Aristotle and the Vedas. And I'd love to discuss this further because I loved what you wrote in this blog.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's an interesting thing because that quote, and maybe people are really familiar with it, that idea of excellence isn't an act, but a habit. And it was just so much, it spoke to me so much of how we look at all of our work in Ayurveda.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So true. And that's what I want to delve into in this conversation today. And I guess let's start with Ayurveda's description of perfect health.
Perfect health from an Ayurvedic perspective is pretty much all inclusive. So we've got physical health and we've got mental health. But the physical health description from an Ayurvedic standpoint is you're going to have balanced doshas. The Vata, Pitta, Kapha will be supporting you, not creating havoc in your body. That the dhatus, or the tissues of the bodies, would all be balanced. So we'd have enough of our body tissue, not too much, not too little. So we're really balanced that way. That our digestive system would be functioning optimally, which pretty much means you'd be unaware of the process of the digestion of the food. You've just got no symptoms of indigestion whatsoever. And then elimination would happen daily, fully, no challenges with elimination, no straining, no loose stools or anything like that. So it's pretty much saying all your body systems are going to be functioning optimally. So you've got good, strong circulatory system and respiratory system, and all the systems are symptom-free and just firing on all cylinders, right? Just functioning optimally. So all of that is looked at as perfect health, having a perfectly functioning body. But Ayurveda adds, and a contented state of mind. Some people even go so far as to use the terms a blissful state of the mind and emotions. And so it's not enough to be physically healthy. We have to be mentally healthy as well to consider ourselves in a state of perfect health.
Absolutely. That's a holistic view of Ayurveda.
Yes.
And in your blog, you mentioned this quote that you talked about there a little moment ago, the shorter version of the quote, but the quote from the Greek philosopher Aristotle. And, you know, on this journey to perfect health, this quote certainly gives us guidance, right? Would you like me to read the quote, or would you like to read the full one?
Why don't you go ahead and do that?
Sure. Okay, great. So let me read the quote out now. And this is the fuller version of the quote. And then I'd love to discuss this with you further, Mary. The quote from Aristotle says, "Excellence is an art won by training and habituation. We do not act rightly because we have virtue or excellence, but we rather have these because we have acted rightly. These virtues are formed in man by his doing the action. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. The good of man is a working of the soul in the way of excellence in a complete life. For as it is not one swallow or one fine day that makes a spring, so it is not one day or a short time that makes a man blessed and happy." That's a beautiful quote.
Isn't it great? And I think so often, like I said at the beginning, we tend often to hear the little snippet of it.
Yes.
And when I found this full quote, it was just, oh my gosh, it's so much about what we talk to people about all the time, about the little victories. You know, it doesn't mean you have to change everything about your lifestyle today, but to take that first step towards choosing health.
Absolutely. Because it can be overwhelming, especially when you're new to Ayurveda and you're learning all about the circadian rhythms and the daily habits. The dinacharya can be very overwhelming. And of course, Ayurveda focuses a great deal on having this foundation of daily self-care practices, or dinacharya. So what is the importance, as Aristotle stated in this quote, about habituation?
Well, one thing I thought about, and you'll read that in the article, like if I was to replace excellence with perfect health, then it becomes perfect health is won by training and habituation. We don't eat good food and do good exercise because we have perfect health. Rather, we create perfect health by incorporating a healthy diet and a healthy lifestyle into our daily activities. And for me, it also gives us a little bit of wiggle room, which means that if I generally have really healthy habits, if I generally get really good sleep and eat good food and have good daily flow, then it's okay if I step out of that for a time when, you know, maybe a vacation hits, or I'm going to go and celebrate a wedding with family. I don't have to be so strict because my habits are going to carry me through, and that will become maybe a little blip, but it won't be the generation of imbalance. If I'm going to pick on alcohol for a minute, but say I have a drink of alcohol at a wedding, that's not going to affect my liver strongly if I don't have alcohol every single other day of the week. You know, it's going to be that habituation creates the balance or the imbalance.
Right, exactly.
And so, so for me, it really was that idea that when we do those daily habits, those daily self-care practices, we're creating an environment of health. And so we're kind of cultivating it, like I'm cultivating up in my garden by going up there and watering consistently. If I came in on Sunday and said, I don't really feel like watering this week, I think I'll just water for the whole week today.
Right.
And I just flooded the garden with water and I walk away. Some of the plants are going to be overwatered by the time Friday or Saturday comes around. Some of them will be wilting and dying. But if I do a little bit each day, the plants are going to thrive. And Ayurveda is always coming back to that concept that we are a part of nature. We're not separate from nature. So it makes sense that the same style of treatment would apply to our own selves, that those little bits we do every day end up creating greater vitality than if I go and have a whole weekend at a spa and do all the self-care practice.
Absolutely. Yeah, it truly is. What we do day in, day out becomes our life.
Right. And it's where we feel comfortable. I'm always talking to people like with tongue scraping. The first time you're scraping your tongue, you're thinking, this is a weird practice. Why am I scraping my tongue? We don't do it in the West. But then pretty soon after that, you don't feel really comfortable going out without having scraped your tongue. You don't feel like you're fully cleansed, like there's something that's missing because I haven't done this particular practice. So I think it's another aspect that when something becomes a habit, it supports itself in its continued application. So if I'm doing that thing and then I begin to say, oh, this is what feels good to me when I do it. And so they become kind of self-fulfilling. And I think too, like some of the daily self-care practices, like you mentioned, looking at the 5 sense cleansing practices, looking at our 5 senses and how we might vitalize them in the morning. I always think of the morning Ayurvedic self-care as armoring up for the day. Like I'm going to prep my immune system. I'm going to prep my nervous system. I'm going to prep my senses so they're really ready for whatever the day has for me. And then if I don't have time in the morning, I can do shorter versions of it, but I still end up kind of carrying the cumulative effect of every day's practices is still going to be beneficial to carry it forward.
And I love that you said the wiggle room. I think that's important, Mary, and I'm a big believer in that we're not so rigid about these practices, that you do allow for some, wiggle room and that it's okay. But the important thing is getting back on the habits then when you get back to regular life.
Yeah, inertia is a terrible thing.
Yes.
It's like, inertia is that concept that when an object in motion stays in motion until you stop it. And then when it's at rest, it stays at rest until some force starts it.
Right.
So if we look at our daily habits like that, that we don't adopt these daily habits kind of until we reach a point where we say, I'm going to do this. We need some kind of force to change from what I was doing yesterday to what I'm doing today. Like I'm going to be a person who does Abhyanga. That's going to be my thing now. So that becomes the force that gets me moving in that direction. And then once I'm doing it every day, it becomes its own force. It's inertia. It's like I wake up and I just naturally go in and start doing the practice. But then we have the challenge with the wiggle room. If I wiggle away for a day, then I usually will come right back.
Right.
If I wiggle away for a week, then it might be a little bit harder to come back.
Yes.
And we probably all have had that experience of having some practice that we were so diligent with. And then all of a sudden someone says, hey, I remember you used to do this, you used to go swimming every day in the gym. And it's like, oh yeah, I used to do that. I should do that again, And that's the challenge with wiggle room is if you wiggle too much, you wiggle right out of the habit.
Right. It's so true. And that's why it's good to remind yourself in those times when you're feeling like you're in good health, you feel like you're thriving, to remind yourself of what you're doing, to keep track of what you're doing.
Yeah, because just the way we can cultivate health, we can cultivate disease.
Yes.
And I think, and unfortunately, when we're a little bit less aligned with our self-awareness, that we might tend to cultivate disease because those are the things we tend to fall into. Like I have a thing about the doshas being a driver of our tendencies, which isn't really my thing. That's Ayurveda's thing. But so if I fall back on my dosha, then I'm not really going to do the self-care because the dosha is not really about self-care. It's about indulgence. The Vata wants to indulge in that dry, cold, light qualities and the variable days. I never doing the same thing 2 days in a row, and they're running from place to place. And it's not until that force comes in and says, I would like to create balance and stability and routine that I bring the Vata back in. Yeah. And the Pitta, of course, has the tendency for the hot, oily, sharp, and intensity and drive. And it's not until they kind of have that force that says, I want to be a person who's calmer and cooler and more collected, and that you begin to make those changes. And the Kapha, of course, is going to crave the heavy, moist, dense things and kind of the stability and slowness of movement through the day, or lack of movement through the day. And it's not until they say, I really got to get up and get moving. So we need that kind of push. But if we fall back, because a lot of times in the wiggle room, that's what happens, is we fall back into default, which is like the dosha. And the longer I stay there, the more it wants to pull me away from my healthy habits and pull myself back into its own experience. I always think this is because the dosha wants to see itself. So the Vata wants to see itself as Vata, so it creates all that dryness and lightness and craziness. And then I'm just along for the ride.
Right. It's so true. It can really start craving those qualities that are going to aggravate the dosha more. Yeah. And I love how you said that, you talked about self-awareness, and dinacharya can really bring us to have more awareness. And Ayurveda talks about, the early morning hours and this awareness, the stillness in nature. And it's when we have access to these more subtle realms and we have more awareness at this time. There's less distraction, there's less stress. Can you talk about the importance of the early morning hours and doing dinacharya as much as we can, given our lifestyle and so on and our responsibilities, but doing dinacharya at this time?
Yeah. So dinacharya, the teachings of the day, or the daily rituals that we do, it's advised that we do care of the senses, 5 sense therapies. And then, of course, expanding out on that, this is a great time if you're doing asana, pranayama, meditation, or exercising and breathing and kind of doing some level of self-assessment or self-awareness practice, that the early morning hours is the time where you should be fairly low stress. I had this experience, and it really struck me, as I had a pretty regular meditation practice going in the morning, and then something came up and I couldn't do it. And in my mind, I just said, that's fine. I'll just do it after lunch. So after lunch came and I sat down, and I could not calm my mind. Because I had all this activity of the day. I had come away from that time period of low stress. I had all the appointments I had held, or the conversations I had had, the work I had done, and all of that was just at me. It was much, much harder to find myself in that meditative mind state. But if we've done a good job with our day, then we should be able to wake up. We've had all this great rest. The brain's done its work of cleansing, and we're ready for the new day. And we have this kind of a blank slate in front of us as we wake, that we should have very low stress. We're not greatly impacted by that doshic mental states of Vata going into fear, worry, and anxiety, and Pitta into planning and controlling and kind of advancing to the cause. And we might have some more of the Kapha, a little bit of lethargy and stagnation. But I often think this aspect of early morning time and more of that Kapha time helps us because Kapha likes habit.
Yes.
And so if we've got something that we're doing every morning, we're going to probably roll with it a little bit better because we'll have that energy of Kapha helping us roll with it. And so we ride on the back of the Kapha moving forward to kind of develop the habit. And then the other part is, why is this so important? And it comes back to what I said earlier, that I think of these, eye care and ear care and nasal care as opportunities to armor up for the day.
Right.
When I wash my eyes, I get them ready for whatever it is I'm going to be looking at that day. And when I oil the ears, I get them ready for whatever it is I'm going to be hearing. And same thing with the neti. We're doing nasal passages. What am I going to smell today? And with the abhyanga, of course, what am I going to feel? What kind of sensations am I going to bring in? And I think abhyanga is kind of a magical practice because it's a lymphatic massage, so it moves the lymph, but it also pacifies the nervous system that is so deeply connected to the skin.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I think those are really key points to, if I get in the morning, if I ride on that low stress and I'm armoring up for the day, I can carry that level of low stress into my daily activities, into my afternoon, into my evening. Oftentimes I'm asked, can I do these practices in the evening? And I say, certainly you can do them anytime. We'd like to see them done in the morning because that's a time when we can better prepare for the day. But you could use them as recovery from the day as well.
Yeah. And that's the nice thing in Ayurveda. There is some flexibility. And of course, the idea is not to put extra stress on you in the morning, but, to do what you can. But the fact that those early morning hours is when we have, like you said, the least stress, and we're able to manage our time a little bit more. Maybe if you have children, the children are still sleeping. So it's the one time of day you might get to have some quiet time to do self-care. And we all know that we need to fill up our own cup first. And self-care is not selfishness. It's filling your own cup up so you have more to give to others throughout the day. Right, Mary?
Oh, that's so true. It is really, really true. So oftentimes I'll do, a practice with students where I have them make a list of everybody that they take care of during a day. Who are all the people and things that you have to take care of during a day? And then after they've done this, I'll ask them, where were you on the list? And they, without fail, they say the same thing. You didn't tell me to put myself on the list. And I said, then I'm telling you now, you got to be on that list.
Exactly.
You got to be there. And then the next question is the much harder one, which is, whose list are you on? And it's just kind of heartbreaking when you see people look and they go, I don't know that anybody has me on the list that's somebody they need to take care of.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about nurturing in recent podcast episodes and the lack of nurturing that some people experience.
Right. And if they can't or won't, if they can't or won't nurture themselves, if we continue this story that we can do everything and we don't need help, that we exist to help you, but we don't need any help. We're always going to the well and drying it out. We're pulling more and more out without ever putting anything back in.
Right. Absolutely. And I do think this is a problem today. I know I certainly meet people who, it's taking care of others all the time. I know myself, I've been like this in the past, where it's, especially as women, and especially for parents, there's a lot of outgoing energy.
Yes.
And there's very little nurturing coming back.
Mm-hmm.
So it really is so important to see this as a priority in your day. And I always say to mothers when I'm talking to them in consultations it's self-care, of course, is important. Fill up your cup, but you're also being a good role model for your children.
Right.
Yeah. They're little sponges. They take in, they watch what you're doing. So they see you taking care of yourself and prioritizing your health and well-being. It's really important for them, for their life.
It is. And when they see you doing that, they're going to want to imitate you.
Yes.
They're going to want to come in and say, oh, I get to do that, Abhyanga. I get to do this, Neti. Right. It's like, oh, I don't know. You're so young.
Yes. But absolutely, they just want to follow along. And this is where you can be a great role model for them and making sure that they have a good balance in life. I'm going to jump in here because I want to let you know if you're looking for support around implementing daily habits, more education around what these daily habits are and how to have this foundation of self-care to keep your doshas in balance and prevent disease, well, you may want to check out my 28-day online Daily Habits for Holistic Health program. It's a self-paced course. And in this program, you will learn how to structure your day to flow with the daily energy cycles, these circadian rhythms, rather than going against them and suffering. You'll also learn about the mental gunas or qualities and how to maintain positive mental health. We'll talk in detail about the foundations of Ayurvedic healing and how to become your own healer. So you get lots of education to empower you to make decisions for your own health and well-being. And I'll also talk about connecting to your true nature and your intuition to help guide you in living a positive and fulfilling life. And so if you're looking for some education and support around implementing these practices and learning more about them, check out that Daily Habits for Holistic Health program. It's 28 days online, and I'll put the link in the show notes, or visit my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com, and just click on the programs tab and you can start at any time. Okay, let's get back to my chat with Mary. And in the article as well, Mary, you mentioned another quote, and then it was from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, I think.
Yes.
And in relation to this talk about perfect health as a journey, and really that it brings us back to awareness of our true nature. And I'd like to read the quote, and then we can discuss it if I may.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
So the quote is, "You are what your deep driving desire is. As your desire, so is your will. As your will is, so is your deed. As your deed is, so is your destiny."
Isn't that powerful?
Yeah, very powerful.
It's so amazing. For me, this quote, it just kind of radiates, because if we don't tap into what it is we want, then we're never going to get where we want to go. Mm-hmm. And so I think in the article I talked about, if your real deep driving desire is perfect health, then you're going to take steps to create it. When something comes up that pulls you towards disease, you're going to say, no, why would I want to do that?
Right.
Maybe you wouldn't say it consciously. You're going to say, or I think of this, when we were younger, when I was in my 20s and I would go to, say, a concert or something, I liked it being super loud and I want to be up next to the speakers. And I have all this, because you want to have, like, my deep driving desire at that time was to have sensory experience. Yes. To go out and have this fulfilling experience. And then you get older and it's like, that's no longer my deep driving desire. I'd much rather go someplace acoustic that's it's dimly lit and has a little bit more ambiance. I don't want to have the sensation of my body of a pounding bass. Yes. I want to be uplifted in some way.
Yes.
So I think that as you identify your desires, it's almost that the things that appeal to you just no longer appeal. And so looking at that deep driving desire and identifying it becomes really important. Mm-hmm. I talk a lot with people about setting goals as they're beginning their life with Ayurveda or working with a practitioner. And so often they have a goal like, I want to lose weight. And that's not really the deep driving desire. That's kind of a superficial goal. So I'll always ask them, so that what? How will your life be different if you achieve this thing that you say? And they might come up with, my clothes will fit better or whatever. And I'll say, okay, and what's going to happen? And then something's going to change. Something shifts and you see this smile creep up into their face and they said, I've always wanted to take ballroom dance and I just feel like I'm too big for it right now. So I would really like to, that's what I want to do. That's how my life's going to be different if I lose this weight. But you can see when they tap into what it is they really want that's exciting, their whole demeanor shifts. Like they get this smile on their face and they're very excited about it, animated about it. There's no prize at the scale. There's no, you drop a pound. It's like, okay, great, I dropped a pound. But if I get one step closer to that ballroom dance class and being able to do the things that I want to do, that's actually going to really motivate me. Mm-hmm. So for me, this quote is really one about identification. Identify what is that deep driving desire. Mm-hmm. What is the thing that lights you up? Because if you can align yourself with the thing that lights you up, you're going to be unstoppable.
I love that. That's great.
You'll just keep moving in that direction. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So I was talking to one client and we finally got to, it was another person that she wanted to, she just wanted to feel better was her thing. And then it eventually came up because she wanted to go to Machu Picchu and it's at a very high altitude and it was going to involve a lot of physical stress to do the trip she wanted to do. And so it was like, okay, so then my goals were all based around getting her to Machu Picchu. Certainly there was the walking and playing with altitudes and having a better diet. But then I would also ask her, check out National Geographic pictures and, bring me back some information about Machu Picchu. And she put together collages and she put pictures on her refrigerator and she everything was about planning this trip. The other things I was asking her to do became so simple. Right. Because they were aligned with her deep driving desire, which was to take that trip.
Oh, I love that. Really, that intention setting is so powerful.
Mm-hmm. It is. And that's what will carry you, because I think so often we're struggling against the dosha.
Yeah.
I want to lose weight, but my body really wants to indulge in these foods.
Right.
And so it's like, so there's always this battle going on. There's me saying that I want to lose weight, but my deep driving desire is to kind of have sensory pleasure and enjoy that. And until I can figure out a better driving desire, I'm always kind of white knuckling my way across the table.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, that's a great step for people. I think a lot of people as well get caught up in, what's my purpose, in this life? And I think looking into the driving desire or the passion is great. It's a great stepping stone on that journey to go, okay, this is my intention. And now let me put the habits in place, those daily self-care practices that are going to support me and get me to this deep driving desire.
Right. And I think we need reminders. I think we need reminders all around us about that desire.
Yeah.
So that we can see it, kind of cultivate it.
Absolutely.
And we can build on it. We can build our way to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I'm a big believer in that. I use the wallpaper of my mobile phone or my iPad, and I put inspirational things of what my goals are there. And I think then on this journey that towards your deep driving desire, if it's a trip, whatever it is for you, that you will have those habits in place to support you to meet that. And then this is where awareness comes, right, on the journey, is that when you have these habits in place that are keeping the doshas pacified, and you're not now draining energy on any aggravations or illnesses, this is where you have the capacity to open up the consciousness to look at the bigger picture of things. And I think that's the journey towards your deep driving desire, and then onwards towards what would fulfill you in this life.
Yes. Yeah. And I also think I'm thinking about stress.
Yeah.
And I usually use this example of thinking, the further apart your reality is from your desire, the more stress you're under. So I figure out my desire, and then I start aligning my day with this desire. At the end of the day, I'm going to have less stress. So I was talking to someone earlier today who was having trouble with boundary setting. And so we were working out what she could do around. She says yes when she should say no, which is one of my issues too. I always feel we talk about what we most need to hear. So, but a big part was, I said, what would happen if you were to tell people, I'm going to consider this. Can I give you an answer by X time, add a few hours, and then just sit down and feel it. What happens? Is this aligned with I didn't say these words to her because I wasn't using the quote at the time. But now it's like, is this aligned with my desires? Is this aligned with my ultimate goal? Because I think it's not always just saying yes when we should be saying no, but it's saying yes to things that aren't aligned with our desires. Yes,
absolutely. And all those things that we say yes to that we're not fully feeling that we want to do it, we're feeling obliged, they're draining our energy.
Right. And then we procrastinate them. Yeah. We end up not liking them. Maybe we resent the person who even asked us. Yeah. We indulge in a lot of negative emotions about it, when ultimately we could have just taken care of ourselves. It all comes back to self-care.
Yes.
Taking care of ourselves. And I was helping her with languaging and saying, what if you were to say, I'm really busy right now and I know that I won't be able to meet your deadline. And so it's better for you to go find someone else to do the project.
Right. That's a great way of saying it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do find boundary setting is a conversation I have a lot with clients. And I do also feel it's our responsibility, right, to set those boundaries, because if we say yes to something now we've taken on the chore, and, and any emotions that come from that is kind of our own fault. So there is a big responsibility for us to be aware of the communication we're having with people and what we're saying yes to in the first place.
Because at the end of the day, we want to be happy with the way our day has gone.
Yeah.
We want to feel low stress. We want to be satisfied. We want to feel we've moved closer to the ultimate goals that we set for ourselves. And I think when we evaluate our daily actions aligned with, against our desires, then we may get a better opportunity to get our reality matching our desire instead of this huge chasm between the two.
Absolutely. And then again, that's all just draining our energy, and
Yes.
we're just running on empty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
true.
And then we run on empty, we default to the dosha,
Yeah.
and we
Yes.
create disease. It's just this like this vicious cycle.
Yes.
And I always say Ayurveda is simple but not easy, because it's really simple for me to say, just, work opposite the dosha, just follow that deep driving desire. But that's not always easy.
No.
It's because we've got all the other factors around us that are kind of pulling us into different directions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think it's a good point that you make about looking at those energy leaks in your life, like whether it's an action that you're taking or something that you're doing, or people around you. How do you feel after you do this, or after you meet with that person, and looking for those energy drains?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And stopping them up. You don't have to let people drain your energy, but we tend to.
Yes.
We feel obliged, like you had said, that things get an opportunity to take our time and attention. And we do want to own that we do have the opportunity to say, nah, I don't think so. I'm going to take care of myself first, and then I can bring my energy back over for whatever you may need.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I'd love to talk a little bit more about boundary setting, and how would you work with someone in regards to that? Because I do feel that's a huge leak of energy for a lot of people. And whether it's with their children or with coworkers or with friends, a lot of us have that desire to please.
Yes. Oh, it's so hard.
It is.
It's very, very difficult. And I think the first step towards kind of shoring up our boundaries is identify where is it we've got those broken boundaries. Maybe as evaluating, I've got my work life, and I've got my home life, and I've got my children, and I've got my social commitments in my church and things like this. And then think about where does it pull me? And does that align with who I want to be? So first, I think always it comes down to identification.
Right, absolutely.
And then I would talk with my client about what are some of the things that they would like to change? What are the things they would like to say no to? In a perfect world,
Yeah.
where there would be no consequence and no guilt or shame, what would you say no to? And then we start brainstorming about what's some languaging. I think one of the biggest parts is the languaging around boundary setting.
Yes.
So if I could say to you, my schedule is so full right now, I can't meet your deadline. So I don't think I'm the best person to do this. But and then the other thing I always say is, and then have a couple of names in your back pocket.
Right.
So you're saying, that's kind of letting them off. You're helping them to find someone who can do it. You're just saying, I'm not the right person for it. And that can give them some, what's the word I want to use here? I think it gives them some control over the situation.
Right.
So if I played it out like that, with the way my schedule's running right now, I can't commit to one more thing. I wouldn't make your deadline. I wouldn't be able to meet the demands that you have, but I have these two people that I have ultimate faith in. I know that this is right up their alley, and this is hard to have a Rolodex, the old school Rolodex of names that we could draw from. But it does help to feel like you are helping this person. You're helping them to find the right person to do the job. And you're owning that doing this job could be detrimental to me, and it's not going to be as satisfactory as they would like it to be.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I like that. Yeah, absolutely. The languaging is everything.
Yes. Because then I could feel comfortable with it, and I might want to practice it. And then after they've got their languaging, we start looking at what are some good safe places to set and hold boundaries, to do it and practice it. Because if we have codependence, if we are, those people that are always going to say yes when we really want to say no, then we might want to practice, because we are going to get pushback from the people who are used to us saying yes. And be prepared that they're going to get pushback, and we say, I really hear that you'd like me to do it, but I'm telling you I really can't. And just acknowledging their side, your side, and being able to do it. And then celebrating with them when they're able to make a boundary, and to recognize when someone crosses that boundary that they have a right to say, we talked about this.
Yes, that's wonderful advice. Thank you for that. That's really great. Because again, that is something that comes up for many of us again and again. And we find ourselves in those situations going, why did I agree to this?
Yeah, I always will joke and say my extrovert makes plans that my introvert self does not want to do.
That's very good. I love it. So true. Absolutely. Because it could be something in the moment where like, yeah, sure. And then, a couple of days later, you're like, oh no, what did I do?
This is why I think that pause between the question, if you'll do it, and the answer that you will is so important, because then you can really feel into it and decide if that is something that feels like, yes, I would like to do this thing. This seems like a great use of my time, a good use of my talents, that I have time for it, that it's going to possibly get me closer to my driving desire, or it may meet some other need. Like maybe I need this job because that's financially rewarding. And so I'm going to take it, even though it may not be aligned with everything I want to do, but I'm going to look at it always for what it is bringing. To have everything I'm doing bring me some degree of positivity.
Yeah. And I like the pause. And so give yourself that window of time. Yeah, it's so true. And so I want to talk to you about another issue that can come up when we talk about daily habits, the daily self-care practices, is the aversion to habits.
Oh, yes.
So how, in your many years of experience, and, particularly we think of more the people with a high Vata constitution who love spontaneity. They're very creative. They're very active. Like you said earlier, don't like to do the same thing 2 days in a row.
So one, this is another great reason to do these self-care practices in the morning, which is kapha time of day. So you have that energy of kapha. Because if you think about it, we tend to eat the same things for breakfast every day, but lunch and dinner changes.
Yes.
It's like we like our habits in the morning. If you were to think about a time of your day that's really habitual, it's going to be the morning. So this is a good time of day to bring that in. Now for Vata dosha, we look at how can you mix it up, or how can you make it a little bit more fun. What I used to do was have a variety of essential oils, and each day I would take out an ounce of my oil, or 1 to 2 ounces for my daily abhyanga, and I would choose, what kind of essential oils do I want to have in here today?
Oh, nice.
How would I make that different? I would make every day I could do something different, and then I became a little bit of an essential oil junkie, that I had to have all these different scents.
But how lovely, you're tailoring it to how you feel that day, and it's creating awareness as to how you're feeling.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so looking at how can they make the practice individual, how can they make it something that's unique to them. That's what Vatas really want. Then you could also look at the environment. I had a client one time that she didn't like doing these because she didn't like her bathroom. And then she said, I just had this realization that I have a guest bath that we never use because we don't have guests. And so she took it over and she put a little a CD player or something like that in there that played music. And now we've got our phones and everything. I guess that's why I forget the name for a CD player. But she had nice music playing while she was in the room. She had a room heater, so the room was brought up to temperature before she came in. She had lovely oils and everything. So it was just kind of creating a nice ambiance for the space in which she was going to do it. And for her Vata, that was really, that drew her into the room.
Beautiful. Yeah.
To do it.
Yeah, that's great.
Apart from that, I think of our Vata dosha, the ones who are really against habit, they will find that once they start this and it becomes habitual, they tend to crave that because it's what they need more. So it's the opposite of their nature. And so they feel really balanced with it, but it does feel weird at first.
Right.
And I also do something that's kind of silly. My background is in working with elementary school kids. So I would keep a chart. I did this many times. If I fell off my practice, I need to bring it back in. I would keep a chart and I would give myself some kind of reward. So if I gave a point each for each of my habits that I wanted to do during a day, and then at the end of the month, I would treat myself to something. It was like a little reward system. And I find Vata dosha is more likely to like the stickers and the stamps and things like that.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Having something that's in place to remind you, then carrying it out, and then having a reward at the end, I think is wonderful.
Yeah, and then eventually the habit becomes its own reward.
Yes.
But sometimes starting things out, we need the gold star. We need something that says, I did a good job today.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And I also find in my consultations, I'll be putting a strategy together of self-care practices tailoring to each person. And I do find that people with a high Vata constitution do better with a slower morning, like easing into the day.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about the different type of dosha styles, maybe for Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, and how the morning in general would look.
Yeah. So Vata has a tendency to want to run out the door. They've got stuff going on, and so they're going to, when they give over to Vata dosha, they wake up, they're already under some degree of stress or anxiety, and so they do things to pacify that. And that could be they don't have time to stop and eat, they've got to go, and they're going to pick up something on the way that they might eat or they might not, and skipping the breakfast. And so in order to bring balance, they really create a calm morning. Like you say, do the things really slowly, do them with focus.
Yeah.
I remember a student one time who said she would meditate with her oatmeal because she didn't have time to both cook for herself and do a meditation in the morning. Right. So she brought that meditative mind state to the cooking of the oatmeal.
Great.
And so it was just like finding ways to work with it and bring it in. And then as time went by, she was able to do both. And Pitta nature with daily practices is really tricky because Pitta wants to get things done. They want to be really productive. Yeah. And they often don't think of these practices as things that are productive.
Yes.
So I always caution Pittas because they'll be doing the Abhyanga. And as they're rubbing their bodies, they're saying, okay, I can call Jim at 10 and I've got that meeting at this afternoon. Oh, don't forget this thing. And so the whole time that they're massaging their body, they're putting their schedule into the body.
Exactly.
So I often have them focused on, I'm worth the time this is taking.
Yeah.
My body will be better and more productive if I take this moments for self-care.
So true. I find that people with a high Pitta constitution, including myself, if something is not purposeful, if it's like there's not an outcome at the end of it, it's just not deemed important, including our own self-care.
Right. And so if you've got any practitioners out there, I always say for your Pitta nature clients, you got to print out every article you've ever read about meditation increases productivity. Ayurveda's daily self-care practices improve your immunity. The better your immune system is, the more days you can spend at work.
All the good productivity stats.
Right. Because that's what they really care about. And getting their mind, getting into mental rest gets really important. And I think the dinacharya, if I take that time before I'm thinking about work and I'm focusing on the care of the body, armoring up, they really like that idea of getting the body ready for the battle.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Of the day. And so if they get that it actually serves them in some way, because they tend not to have a problem getting up. They might have, they wake up, they've already got 3 projects going on. They've got ideas in their mind for how to be more efficient. And so they look for efficiency. Yes. And this is about, okay, you can be more productive. You can be more efficient if you take care of yourself first.
Yes, absolutely. Great. And then Kapha.
And then Kapha dosha has a harder time in the morning than Pitta and Vata do because this is Kapha time of day. And so they're going to be more heavy, more sluggish, more lethargic at this time than they will later in the day. So one of the things I think of with Kapha dosha, one of the best things to do right off the bat is to stretch, especially if they can do it in the sunlight, to get that prana moving deep into the cells and kind of wake up that circadian rhythm that we've moved into daytime. And we do have that Pitta dosha on the rise that's going to help, but Kapha has to really make sure that it's kind of like going back to the night before, not eating too close to bed, that they get to bed and can sleep well so they can wake up early.
Yes.
And sometimes Kaphas do great waking up even before sunrise, 4 to 5 in the morning.
Yes, the earlier, before the Kapha energy hits.
Exactly, so that they can get moving. Yeah. And so for them, it's more stimulating kind of self-care. The Vatas, Pittas don't even think about so much, but using a dry brush instead of doing the Abhyanga or doing silk gloves for that to kind of get that lymph moving. And doing the practices that are a little bit more heating, warming up.
Yes. Yeah. More energizing morning practices, like you said. Okay, great. Yeah. And that's it. It's important to tailor these practices, not only to your constitution, but also to your lifestyle. Making sure, again, that you're not stressing yourself out.
Exactly. Because you want to make this something that is bringing you closer to your desire, not one more stress that you're putting on the plate.
Yes, absolutely. So Mary, if somebody's listening and they're kind of starting with this journey with Ayurveda, where would you suggest they start with the dinacharya, with the daily habits?
Oh, that's a good question.
Which one would you think is
which one of these would, it's funny because now when we look at the dinacharya, and I'm going to focus on the 5 sense care. So when we look at these, it's real easy to rinse your eyes in the morning. You don't have to do a full eye wash, but just splashing water in your eyes or even holding a cold cloth over your eyes for a few minutes can be really beneficial. Very easy to do. And you can be ultimately successful on the first day, right off the bat, because it just involves, while you're in the bathroom anyway, splashing water on your eyes.
Yes.
Oils in the ears is another real easy thing to do. So I think if they want to be successful right off the bat, I'd look at eye and ear care. Would be the ones you could do just very simply. It doesn't even add a minute to your morning routine.
Exactly.
Looking at something like Abhyanga, which has got a lot more intricacies to it, I guess I could say. It could be something that you start by reading about it or start by watching videos on it. There's some wonderful videos online about how to do the Abhyanga practice. And then when you have a morning, when you have like a Saturday or Sunday where you're not immediately demanding that you go someplace else, give it a try. Yeah. On the mornings when you're really busy, just take one body part. I had a client do this one time. She started with arms was on Mondays, torso was on Tuesdays, legs were on Wednesdays. So by the end of the week, she'd done one full Abhyanga.
Great.
But now she's doing one every day. Yeah. But we had to meet her where she was. So I think sometimes we insist that we do everything on the first day, but maybe we have to ease our way into it or get familiar with it. And then choose oils that you just love, that you just can't wait to smell them and have them on your body and nurture yourself with that. Because it's like, if you don't, I've had people that say, oh, I didn't like the smell of the oil. It's like, yeah, that's not good then. You want to feel this is just such a wonderful practice.
Exactly.
So my personal favorite is to start people with Abhyanga because I think it's so important for Vata dosha. But I think sometimes they want to have the successes first. So we've got the eyes and the ears really easy. The nose is interesting because we've got the neti pot, which can be, some people have a very easy time with and some people struggle with. Yeah. And that can be just a great practice. The mouth, we're already 2/3 of the way there, right? Yes. So this could be another great one to start with for success, is to get a tongue scraper and begin the process of scraping the tongue in addition to what you're already doing with flossing and brushing the teeth. So you're just taking care of that sense organ right off the bat. Yeah. So when I do these in order, like if I want to be the most efficient with them, because my pitta comes up around efficiency, what I tend to do is I start the day, I rinse the eyes. Then I do the Abhyanga. And then as the Abhyanga oil is on my body, I come in and I make sure I put oil in my ears, take care of my nasal passages, take care of my mouth, because now the oil's had a chance to saturate a little bit. So they often advise that after you do an Abhyanga to give it as long as possible for the oil to saturate, up to about 20 minutes. And that can add a lot of time to someone's morning routine. But if you do the Abhyanga first, then you take care of everything else, then it will have that chance to saturate while you're taking care of the other senses.
Great. And I think, like you said earlier, making your bathroom or wherever you're doing these practices a place where you enjoy being, that you have your essential oils there, maybe you're diffusing them, maybe there's some nice music. There's so little time in our day when we get to really do something for ourselves. Make it so that it's like almost spa time for you, that it's something that you really enjoy, look forward to.
And think of it as, this is how I nurture myself. This is how I'm going to take care of myself so that I can go out and do all these things that I want to do without causing disease.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautifully said. Yeah, choosing to start the day like this, taking care of yourself, is going to make for a much better energy throughout your day.
Yes.
Well, Mary, thank you so much. This is great. And, I'd love for you to share with people how they can find out more about you.
Okay. Yes, I have a website. It's marythompsonayurveda.com. And you'll find on that website that I am kind of winding down my public life in Ayurveda, but keep watching the website, because one of the things I want to do over the next year is take all these things that I've created over the course of 25 years teaching and make them accessible to people. So
wonderful.
You'll find right now in the resources page, there's a number of things that I've put up there from different classes. And if there's anything there that you want, those are all free, and more stuff will be coming.
Wonderful. And I hope that you will come back here and share some of your wonderful wisdom with us. I love having you on the podcast.
Thank you. It's so great to talk to you, Colette. So anytime, if you end up with a spare hour, we can sit down and just pull up a topic.
Okay.
It's fun to talk.
That'd be amazing. Thank you so much, Mary. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today. And you always are such a source of great wisdom. And I appreciate you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you and everything you're doing with the Elements of Ayurveda podcast.
Thanks, Mary. We'll talk soon. Take good care of yourself.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Mary, and please check out the link in the show notes for Mary's website, marythompsonayurveda.com. Just a great resource to so many years of experience teaching Ayurveda. If you think that this episode will be helpful to family or friends, please share it with them. And if you would like support around implementing daily habits and also education in Ayurveda, check out my online self-paced 28-day daily habits for a holistic health program. And you'll find that link in the show notes or on my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com under programs. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe or follow the podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you would like to rate and review the podcast, I would really appreciate that. Thank you so much for tuning in, and take good care of yourself. Be well, and bye for now. Slán go fóill.